start the video. That might help.
How's it going?
Good. How are we? Where's Hallie at?
She's coming. I'm sure
Cool.
there she is. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I was in the wrong meeting room. That typically happens to the guest, not to the host, but it does happen apparently. So I apologize.
We're all good. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, let's do a quick rundown. I'm pretty much gonna talk to you guys about yourself. Is there anything more recent that you think might be applicable to the podcast or the listenership that you guys might want to bring up or talk about?
I don't think so. Any more recent things? I think we're pretty much an open book and ready to roll.
Cool. Well, I mean, without further ado, I really can just get this thing rolling for us.
Hey, Hallie, we can barely hear you.
Oh yeah, let's get this going.
I'll try to talk loudly.
I may be able to. Well, no, I can't turn individuals up. Well, let's get some ABC 1, 2, 3s from Hallie.
Okay, how about now?
That is better.
Better? I'll lean in and talk loudly.
That's better. Do that. Yeah. You need to invest into a new computer.
Yes, I know.
That sounded all right.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sick anyway, so I'm gonna let Adam do most of the talking.
Okay. I'll say Hallie before any Hallie questions. How about that?
Right.
Okay. Cool. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to the How to Entrepreneur, the #1 Do Not Be a Entrepreneur podcast. Today, I've got another great couple of guests. I know I say this every episode, but I really do mean it. We're joined by co-founders and co-authors of the Founder and Force Multiplier, How Entrepreneurs and Executive Assistants Achieve More Together, Hallie Warner and Adam Hergenrother. Hallie, Adam, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. And you nailed the name. It took me to like high school to figure that out. You just got that right off, not even a try in the intro or anything, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I had some time to prep. I'm not gonna take that. Yeah, this just full disclosure. Sometimes we do edit the podcast, everyone. It doesn't always sound this good and this seamless. All right, Hallie, Adam, from blog to book to movement to organization and community. How did the Force Multiplier, our founder and the Force Multiplier, all start?
Yeah, it's a pretty our journey started together when Hallie was hired from a Craigslist ad back when Craigslist actually worked in 2009. I think it was actually you applied for it. I think you were hired in 2010, but I think it was 2009 when we started interviewing from there. And actually it was great. But anyways, obviously our relationship has continued to grow throughout the years, but probably somewhere around, I'm skipping a little bit of that 5-year segment, which we can go back to, but just to kind of explain how it was, we wrote a blog about our partnership. And we know like this is like 6 years into it or so. And, we tracked our numbers and that it was like, we had like 3,000, 4,000 people read it in like 12 hours. And we were like, what was that? Right. Because typically we weren't getting that type of engagement.
Went viral.
Yeah, we did. We're like, was that just like a fluke or was the wording? We were like looking at everything's in there. And so 90 days later, we actually tested it out again and wrote another one about our relationship and the same thing happened. And then we actually did it again 90 days approximately later, just as a third test to see what it was. And then we just, again, the same type of thing happened, approximately the same number. There's a large spike. And we just had a lot of people reaching out and basically saying, hey, talk to us about this. We're trying to find this. I also think just in general, people started seeing and realizing the benefits of having a force multiplier next to you. Again, and we use that definition as an executive assistant or a chief of staff, or it could be a personal assistant as well too. Somebody's really is force multiplying the executive, the owner, the divisional leader in basically doing the same job, which we can break down these components of it. But that's when we started finding, how do I find this person? How do I get the right one? How do I find a Hallie, right? And how do I work for an Adam? It was a lot more of like, how do I find a Hallie than how do I work for an Adam?
And
but like,
these are things that you guys are just figuring out as you're writing the blog. Where were you guys publishing or posting the blog? Was it on Facebook, your own website?
Yeah, I think we were. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was our own website, and then of course we were pushing it out to social, but primarily LinkedIn is where I think we got most of our traffic, but between our own website and LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was going to ask, to get any type of organic, attraction or traffic like that, it's really difficult. But with the Force Multiplier being your, I don't know, sort of the bulk of your SEO, I guess you guys would probably rank pretty high organically. But I just don't know how many people are Googling that or back then.
Yeah. I don't know either.
We we started ranking pretty high and we still do for anything for executive assistant and or chief of staff coaching.
That's great.
We're still pretty up there. So
that's awesome. So the Craigslist interview, this one for Adam, I'm assuming that Hallie wasn't the first interview. Maybe there were some executive assistants before Hallie. How did those work out?
Well, like most entrepreneurs, I started my first business in 2006 and I had no idea what I was doing. And I realized that early on that I was inherently lazy when it came to doing anything that anybody else could do. But if it came to anything that I had to do, I was really good at it and laser focused on it. And so I naturally, in the first 90, 120 days of kind of building a business, started hiring people. And I went through, we calculated the number one, maybe like 6, 7 different kind of executive assistants, general assistants, whatever you want to call them back then, in probably like a 3-year period of time. And, I realized that I knew what talent didn't look like. I don't think I really knew what talent looked like back then. And then when I sat down I had a hire at the time, it's actually kind of an interesting story. And these are things that leaders, by the way, entrepreneurs face. So this is kind of a cool story. We were small back then, relatively small. I had an executive assistant at the time, or no, I had a general, they were like I think marketing specialist or general admin is what she was. And she was actually, yes, exactly. This woman was going to come in and move into the executive assistant role, and Hallie was going to take her place as kind of like a marketing admin. And I met with Hallie and I was like, wow, she sounds talented. And I don't remember exactly what I was thinking, but I clearly was like, wow, she showed up, she's fast, she responds faster than I do, which is hard to see. And so anyways, I was like, you're hired, basically, right? Like without doing much. And she came on board, and about 2 weeks into this, Dylan, it's kind of interesting. Without talking to either of them, I brought them both into my office and I said, I don't know how this is going to go, but here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that Hallie should be the EA. You should go back to your old job.
And it's better than getting fired.
Yeah. So I was like, are they both going to walk out? Whatever it is. And they both looked at each other and go, we agree. And I was like, perfect. Yes. And they hadn't talked about it either. Like, it was just clear Hallie was gunning for it. She wanted it way more. There was something a little bit different in her, and the other individual, great person, but just wasn't quite at that same track. And then there, Hallie kind of set the bar for, who we hire in our organization.
Okay. So Hallie, what was your first impression of Adam? I mean, I'm sure you weren't aware of the synergies earlier on, but there was probably a pretty strong vibe he gave off going through, 6 or 7 executive assistants or right-hand ace employees up until meeting you.
Yeah, and I didn't know any of that before I met Adam. That he
had a track record. Yeah,
may have changed things for me. I don't know, but Adam was a lot different than he is. It was 12 years ago, so he's a bit different than he was now than he was then. But some of the things that I really noticed in him were he had a very clear vision of what he wanted, and even if he was slightly unclear on what that vision was, I just could feel the energy and focus that no matter what he did, we were going to succeed at it. And so that was highly attractive to me as somebody who also wanted to be highly successful. So there was that drive, there was that very clear vision, and Adam, you mentioned it too, being really fast paced, super responsive, already had success in the real estate industry. So I was very attracted to that. I wanted to align myself with somebody who was successful and who exhibited strong leadership traits. So that was the initial alignment right there, and then it just grew from there.
Awesome. So earlier on, you like Adam had mentioned, you weren't taking on the full responsibilities yet of the executive assistant or chief of staff that you are now. When did you two begin to sort of delegate more responsibilities and more day-to-day ops stuff to you, Hallie? And how difficult did that prove to be? I mean, are you pretty much capable of doing everything Adam is at this point? If he's, calling in sick for the day, has it started from something that was rudimentary and grown into something that's truly, almost co-founder-ish?
You want to go?
I would say, Adam is really strong in some areas that I'm not, and vice versa. And I think that's why we have such a great partnership. But yes, could I fill in for him for a short period of time if needed? I think so. If there were some really major financial decisions, I would defer. We would wait. But I think I started just naturally taking on a lot in the beginning. And Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was less about waiting for Adam to delegate anything to me as much as it was that I was just trying to grab as much as I could from him. Initiative. I was learning everything that he was learning. I went to all the trainings that he was going to.
Oh, great.
I just become an extension of him, pretty much from day one. So that was just my natural inclination. And again, it's just growing from there.
I think yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I think she's underselling it a little bit. Like, honestly, like at the beginning of that, like she would just start taking more and more and more. One of the early things, and we deal with this a lot, people are like, how am I supposed to give up my calendar? How am I supposed to give up my email? And it in the beginning, when I'm giving up my calendar, it felt like to me, like somebody was like stabbing me for my freedom, right? Like it was like, they're going to take this away and have everything. But as we know, and if people have given up their calendar, you realize there's actually a tremendous amount of freedom in there. She just sat down and goes, well, why don't you just block off what I'm allowed to put in there? And I was like, well, that's a great idea, right? Like, okay, so here are the blocks that, and we still have that today, which we have an executive assistant that supports us. That's basically like 8:30 to 11, you can put everything in there. From 1 to 4, you can put these blocks in there. Certain days, right? Certain days are off, you can't. And we just block everything else. So then it kind of gives you control of your calendar with giving somebody else control of it. But Hallie was literally, she read every single one of my sent emails. She went through all one of everyone just to see how I responded, how I handled it. She went through all my deleted emails. She literally read every book that I was reading. And we both read 50, 60, 70 books a year, right? Wow. So it's like reading hers plus all of mine. She literally did. She was going to all the events. She was breaking down and asking me about decisions that I was making and why I would make them, so she could understand that. So early on, then and ultimately, she earned the right to be basically exactly what you said, a co-founder, and also to be there making strategic decisions along the side.
Yeah, it sounds like how you really inundated yourself with Adam and his entrepreneurial spirit, almost, so to speak. Sort of like some sort of machine learning. Like you could be the brand's voice, or you could be Adam's voice. You can dictate Adam's schedule, like you said earlier. You could do a lot of the things that can need to be done on a daily basis, minus some of the higher level stuff that, I mean, you guys obviously are independent of one another in terms of things that you do. Despite of having that synergy amongst the team. I'm curious because I've heard it like I think 2 times now. Hallie, you replaced yourself. How did that interview go in comparison to the one that you had with Adam? Did you just switch seats? Is that sort of what happened?
Well, much like Adam had 6 different assistants over the years. I also had many different iterations of assistants over the years until it's a hard position to fill for many reasons when you're replacing yourself. Not only do I have to, make sure Adam's expectations are met, but I would argue that my expectations are even higher for what this person is supposed to do, because it's a reflection of me, as well as I know what standards should be upheld in this position. So needless to say, it does take a while to hire that replacement. It's a bit of a transition. And then, yeah, I mean, it's the same 30, 60, 90 day, plan to get that person up to speed. And then usually it will take up to 6 months for them to start really understanding the flow of the business and what really needs to happen. But they, I'm always there kind of still casting that vision and making sure that things get executed appropriately.
Awesome. And the Force Multiplier, are there levels to this? Let's say we do bring on an executive assistant, or we've been working for someone long enough that we want to sort of graduate into that role. How do you dictate, when is a good time, or when is it when is it opportune to sort of overwhelm them once more with another set of responsibilities or job, what am I looking for here? The positions within, the positions on a daily or routine basis.
I think the number one thing is you just got to get clear on what the organization needs and what you need. I think a lot of people come into Hallie and I, they go, hey, well, I need a chief of staff, right? And we actually sit down with them or kind of go through a process with them. And we're just like, you actually need an executive assistant, right? And I think defining the executive assistant is very reactive to an executive schedule, because it changes. The calendar is the most important thing, communication with individuals and making sure you're setting up from there. So that's a functionality of the C-suite, if you will, or the leader of the division or the executive. The chief of staff is much more long-term. It's not quite as reactive. It's more about being proactive. It's about business initiatives, making sure that the vision is really being casted and extended to everybody in the organization. And it's also a really well-done chief of staff is also implementing direction and clarity to the rest of the team from the CEO on a daily basis, right? Just making sure they have what they need to be able to execute on. Whereas the EA may be facilitating information process through there, whereas the chief of staff is really making sure that the business itself is moving forward in the directions that it needs to. So it kind of just depends on the people around you. Like you can see some organizations that have, you know, a COO that's kind of operating like a chief of staff, right? That it could be someone there, though a chief operating officer, as our definition, is not a force multiplier. They're a chief operating officer. They have a specific role. The way we kind of look at the totality of an executive assistant, chief of staff, or personal assistant is the extension of what the executive is doing themselves. Mm-hmm. So I always, in the book, we talk about it's kind of like a 0 to 10. Like I'm really good at taking things from like 0 to a 1, and then I just suck at everything else, right? So it's funny because you'd ask me the question, could I fill in for Hallie for a day? And the answer is no. Like I couldn't actually. Like I wouldn't even know what to do. But from like a 2 to a 9, Hallie takes it, and then she'll either give it back to me or give it to the appropriate person to go from there. So it's the same job that we're doing. We're just doing different pieces of the job itself. And I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs and founders get lost, and they can't scale their business to what they want to because they end up trying to do everything, which really isn't appropriate for them. That's why that EA is such an important hire for them, to be able to delegate parts of exactly what they're doing off to somebody else. They stay focused on what either brings them joy of some level, but being an entrepreneur, you kind of got to do a lot of things, or just where your strength is. Like go focus on that and go and allow yourself to sit there and really hammer down on that.
Yeah. And we can sort of hear there's like an undertone of the issues that could be. I'm assuming a lot of people, you know, they read the Force Multiplier, they read the blog earlier on, they're familiar with you two, and they're trying to replicate that in their own business. And it's probably pretty hard to parallel given the, you know, level of success or integration you two have had into one another's sort of daily function. What are some of the more common issues that people come to you with that need help ironing out?
Go ahead, Hallie.
Yeah, it all generally all comes down to communication. Assuming that there is, you know, there's a partnership in place. The other issue is that this person, the entrepreneur, doesn't have a partner yet, but and they want help with finding that strategic partner. But assuming that there is the partnership in place, it's always about communication. The force multiplier saying that the entrepreneur or executive is not spending enough time with them and canceling their meetings. The executives are saying, you know, my force multiplier doesn't understand my vision, or isn't, you know, taking what I'm saying and being able to implement effectively. And so it all comes down again to communication. And a couple of the things that we do is making sure that we implement and never cancel our weekly one-on-one meetings.
I like that.
So important. We've met every, I can't remember how many weeks it is, but we've met every Monday for 30 minutes to 1 hour for 12 years.
Wow.
Maybe we can count on one hand how many times that has not happened. And I believe that is a direct contribution to the success that we've both had in our careers and businesses. When you make that investment into the partnership, the force multiplier can actually help the founder or the leader that much better.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, I get to learn from Adam how he thinks, how he makes decisions, which in fact makes me a better force multiplier. Go ahead. So that would be like one of the immediate things I would implement is that weekly one-on-one meeting.
Okay, so it's sort of it's a key component to the relationship. You guys are able to communicate effectively with one another and in order to learn from one another. And it almost sounds like it's a necessity, and it might even be kind of a good culture fit or a cultural check or fit check going into the relationship. If you're able to do those meetings once a week, because you two genuinely want to, and that's a good sign that the entrepreneur is, or the founder is someone that is, driven to do this thing that they've sought out to do, and that the person, the executive assistant or whatever the title may be when they first come on, then being able to sort of keep pace with the founder or help follow through in some cases, maybe, because I mean, you guys did miss a handful, so I would love to know exactly what those cases were. Maybe they're doctor's appointments or the unclogged vacations. Something smaller. But I'm assuming that you two don't only meet each other halfway, but you make sure that the other person is brought halfway if for whatever reason they're lagging or there's something going on.
Well, the thing is you can make whatever relationship you want. I heard Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg talk about their relationship before it ended amicably, but like they were together for a long period of time. And I think Mark said something that really goes well. And he said, the reason why the relationship works so well is because we both wanted to be in a partnership. Either one of them would have been successful on their own. And I think that's a lot of founders don't realize that they need a partner, right? And they think of partners as like 50-50 equity. There's equity components that may or may not be something you can share, but like there's the partnership of actually seeing this individual, this force multiplier as your partner. Because entrepreneurship, especially in small businesses, a lot for your listeners who are building, right? It's hard out there. It's difficult. It's lonely. They don't have anybody to talk to you. But the part of it is having an individual that's right next to you. Is sometimes I will sit down with Hallie and all this talk and I'll say, don't ask me a bunch of questions. I just want to get some things out, right? Because I don't really want the answer. I don't want you to tell me or ask for clarity. I just want to be able to share this with somebody else who isn't going to take it the wrong way. So, and vice versa, the same thing for her coming to me is like, hey, this may sound petty, but I just got to get it off, right? Whatever it is. And then we move on and actually solve the issues. But having that in there is why because it's hard building a business, right? There's a lot of challenges that show up, and having that partner that you know that you can rely on will allow you to actually push through a lot of those dark times, especially right now. We're coming into an economic downturn. There's a lot of layoffs. People are looking at everything. You need different people having different opinions in there that are going to give you an opinion, not based on what you want to hear, but based on what is best for the organization. And Hallie and I both always looked at that. If you come to me with anything you want and say it, if it does hurt my feelings, I will get over it, but you still need to say it. And so we can actually work together to grow ourselves personally as well during this process, then get very clear and make the best decision for the organization.
Yeah, it sounds like a very much deserved bias. And to be able to effectively establish your communication to an even greater length, you guys are able to do that in that way. I'm curious now, I know that you mentioned this, and I don't know if anyone kind of heard it and didn't really take it in, but you preface these talks or conversations where you just need to vent with, hey, don't ask me any questions, in order to like sort of pre-establish that. And that's another like sign of your effective communication, because not doing that alludes to the other person that, hey, I'm being counseled for advice, or there's a real problem here. It's not just someone venting. How important is it that you guys preface these conversations?
Well, Hallie is so good at driving at clarity, which pisses me off sometimes, even when I not ask her that, because she's trying to really do it. But like for me, and I think for some people, when that happens, it's like, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I say it, and I'm like so excited about this thing. And she's like, what about this, 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 and this? And I'm like, why are you ruining everything? Right? Like, just let me live in here and do this. But like, really, it's for the best part of the organization, because I hadn't thought about it. And what it really is it's challenging my own thinking of it, which is what you really need in your organization too. You need somebody else challenging your thinking, because you're not right most of the time. You may be partially right, but there's never been a conversation I've ever walked into any meeting in my life where I've been solely right? I mean, somebody else has a sliver this, or I've been totally wrong. And I always look at people and I go, why wouldn't you ever walk into a meeting willing to be right or willing to be wrong? What is the outcome? The best outcome is you're right and everyone hears you, and now everyone's supporting you. The other side is you're wrong and you hear it and you don't make that decision, and you just save the organization a bunch of time and energy. The only thing that gets in the way is the ego, right? So you gotta, as much as you can,
get used to it.
Clarity. Yes, exactly. And welcome that conversation in there. But answer the direct question. Yeah, I think for me, prefacing that for her, she won't go into her mode of her job, of really drilling in that, and she'll just listen. And she may ask a few questions about it, but then mostly we just move on to something else from there. But it's all part of effective communication and building trust. And I don't mean just trust in terms of like, you're not going to lie or do something. I mean, trust, like if I tell you something, it doesn't leave. It's like, I always think of it as like, you have to be a vault for each other. Right. Mm-hmm. And I actually think about just in business in general, when people tell you things as a leader, and we've got almost 1,000 different people in our organizations now. So, I mean, when somebody is telling you some information, I always think of this as like a vault for me, so that you don't ever have to worry about retracing who you told or didn't tell. You just let that part go and you use it in your decision-making without having to divulge information that's given there. It's just part of the communication tactic you can do as an executive.
And that's what makes or breaks it, I'm assuming.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So you guys recently, I mean, the book, the community surrounding the book, recently there's been a community of some sort that was either launched or maybe it aggregated on its own. Could you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
I'll jump in.
Yeah. sure. So we're really excited about our community. It launched toward the end of last year, and it's specifically designed to take a lot of the things that we talk about in the book and really bring them into actionable practice for both leaders and force multipliers. So our community is unique in that we're serving both people rather than just, there's tons of leadership training out there. There's tons of great, well, there's not a ton, but there's a good amount of chief of staff training out there. But we are really, really passionate about getting these two partners to work better together, to navigate change, to learn how to lead together. So that's what our community is designed for. And to solve that challenge of how do they communicate? How do they learn to lead better together? How do they learn to make better decisions? How do you find the right match?
Mm-hmm.
So we have, video training, on-demand webinars. We do weekly power hours. We have lots of downloadable resources in there. We have a free version of the community, but we also have a paid membership where you can get access to a lot of training and resources, and some discounts on our cohort coaching. But it's really that one-stop shop for leaders, entrepreneurs, and force multipliers to learn how to build their relationship and build businesses together.
And is this something that lives in like a newsletter and goes live on YouTube, or is it a Facebook group that's also a Slack channel? How do you guys have it set up?
Yeah, it's actually a whole separate community. And if you go to our website, you can just click join community. It brings you right there, and you can sign up and create your membership program.
Oh, wow. Yep. It's in a big red square, everyone, in the header.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm curious, you guys have obviously, you've been building something that's a lot more elaborate, I think, than what you originally planned on. Was there this sort of, foresight going into this, that, hey, this relationship is it's going to turn into a book. It's going to turn into a newsletter. How did that evolve out of all of this? Because I'm sure that the synergy was great, but where did that vision come from?
Well, I mean, I think in general, what we built, when people ask that question, not just about the founder and Force Multiplier, but all the organizations that we built together, it's, one part of me thought we would gotten there faster, and one part of me is just still astonished at what we actually accomplished. And it's like the both those worlds kind of show up, right? The founder and Force Multiplier, I mean, I still am perplexed. I mean, every day we sell 10, 15, 20 books, right? And, we're having companies like BlackRock, hire us to do, informal training for 500 other peoples that are there. And it's just the people are changing their job descriptions to looking for my Force Multiplier as prior to applying for this job, please make sure you read this book, right?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so it's really, and we get every day, there's some sort of solicitation for us to speak or do anything like that. So worldwide, and it's that in itself, I think is a telltale sign of the direction of entrepreneurship in general, which is about not being this sole individual up there and welcoming partners early on, and actually going out there and building something together versus trying to do it on your own. And I think there's I think people are searching for that, about doing meaningful work together, and I think this is just one way that you could strengthen that.
Yeah, I think if only people were more aware of the actual superhero abilities that really come out of relationships like this.
Yeah.
I have a Hallie of my own, or maybe I'm the Hallie in the relationship, but the business, it didn't start like that. And once we sort of gotten our groove, and I think I have a Hallie, because they're the ones that usually tell me I'm wrong. And I've really built up this ability to sort of my ego doesn't exist. I think that's a good way to summarize it.
Yes.
But yeah, that makes sense that you guys were able to grow it, and the pace is irrelevant. I mean, it's really what you build. It's not the amount of time it takes to get there. As long as it's built.
Yeah. Imagine having a sports team, right? Let's say you're playing baseball and you didn't have a pitcher, right? That's kind of how you think. You're and then you're hey, we need the first baseman to come in here and pitch a few innings, and you're wondering why you're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, business is all about, self-leadership in general is not some fairy airy tale. Leadership is about getting people to take a different level of action that supports them in the organization. And self-leadership precedes leadership. So how do you both bring leadership into the organization? And that infiltrates from every different level, because people are just not nearly as good as they think they are. I think entrepreneurs in general think they
Honest truth.
should, it's almost like they should be doing everything. Like, I should know how to do everything. I should be able to do stuff. And it's like, at some point you make peace with the fact that, like, I actually suck at all that. I really do. And for me, it was easy. I just try to fire myself from every position I ever had and replace people to do these things. They do it way better than me. So I could sit back and actually lead through people and do different components of that.
Yeah, I think there's actually a few quotables in that response there. We might end up taking one out and repurposing it for the episode.
Nice.
So I guess I'll ask both of you. Hallie, we'll start with you. If you were to tell someone to pick up the book and turn to, X number page, because this is the best part of the book, or the most pivotal part of the book for you and your partner in business, what would that be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know the exact page number. I don't have the page number.
Maybe a chapter.
Or even the chapter, because I don't have it in front of me. But and Adam, you may actually answer the same way. One of the chapters is about how the 3 things that a leader must do, and then how in conjunction with that, how the force multiplier actually force multiplies those leaders' 3 most important things. So to me, and actually you can get that chapter free on our website. So that's a great one to start with. It really is, to me, it's what the partnership is about. The leader has these 3 most important things, and how does the force multiplier actually take that and implement and then maximize that reach?
And is Hallie right, Adam? Is that is that where I'm going to pick the book up at and start off? And before
I think right now that would be the great place to start, because vision, clarity, direction, and decision making is really the 3 things a leader must do right now. And then how do you actually bring your force multiplier in there to make sure those things are being done every day? I mean, Jeff Bezos said, when he had a few things going on when he was CEO, right? Like he said, literally, I still get 8 hours sleep. And the most important thing I need to do as a leader is make 3 quality decisions every day. So then you kind of work backwards and say, well, how do I put myself in position to be the clearest leader, to make those powerful decisions every day? So that, because business building isn't built on one decision, right? It's like small 1%, 2% better off decisions every day,
incremental,
which change the trajectory of the entire organization. That's why when you hang out with somebody, you're like, I don't know, they're not that much better than me. And they go, no, they're not. They're just 3%. The 3% compounded every single day is a wildly different company. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, you guys are reverse engineering your future selves in business, just taking those 1%, 2%, and 3% steps on a daily basis. Is there anything that I didn't ask or mention that you yourself or Hallie wanted to bring up before I move you guys into some more rapid fire type questions and I get us all out of here?
Rapid it.
All right, Adam, this first one's for you. Are there any entrepreneurs / right hand duos that you follow in entrepreneurship?
Well, the Mark Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg was a really good one for a while, because I love that relationship.
Okay, and Hallie, this one's best suited for you. If you had to pick a skill to focus on early for force multipliers, what's that one thing you should really hone in on?
Their own leadership skills.
Their own leadership skills. Short, concise, clear. And this one for the both of you, where can we go to find out more? Where are you guys active online, whether it be LinkedIn or Twitter, somewhere where there's a dialogue maybe?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the best place to go to get started is go to our website, founderandforcemultiplier.com/welcome. You can get access to a lot of our free resources, our newsletter, our community from there. And then the best place to engage in conversation with us is definitely through our free community. I'm in there every week answering questions, providing additional resources. And then you get access in there to our weekly webinars, our power ups. So you can kind of hang out with us a lot if you go join the community.
And Adam, do you guys host the power hours on your website, or what do you guys use?
We use Zoom.
Zoom. Okay, Zoom. Perfect.
Yeah,
we'll leave all that in the show notes. Hallie Warner, Adam Hergenrother, co-founders and co-authors of the Founder and Force Multiplier. I appreciate you guys coming on today. I know this applies to a lot more people in their business than they think, or they're maybe more aware of. But these synergistic relationships, they can be a lot more than what they currently are. If we just take a second and realize they're in front of us, and we need to start capitalizing on the way that we work within one another's day to day. It was great.
Yeah, thank you. And Hallie, you did great for being sick. You did awesome, by the way. So thanks for showing up and doing that. I just know her so well. I can tell like she's struggling to do that right now, but you're just there. So Dylan, I know how much time and energy it takes to put the podcast on and get this out to your listeners. So thank you so much for having us and for doing what you're doing and making an impact.
Awesome. And we're good.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you guys. A 10-day turnaround time. I can steal a photo from you from the website if there's one of both of you, but is there one?
Should be a
of you?
couple.
We
Should be
have
a couple.
Let me send you a bunch of assets and like our bios if you don't already have them, and then I'll send you all the links that you can add into show notes and all that.
That makes my life a lot easier. Okay, perfect. I'll reach out before we launch or before we post the episode and get the sign off from you guys.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks so much.
See you guys.
Bye bye.